Ladies and gentlemen, before we start this show, I wanted to introduce this episode's film to you in the same way it was introduced to me. Back on November 12th, 1993, the BBC ran a horror season and brought in someone ideally suited to host it. A whole generation of viewers will still remember this vividly. Unfortunately, one or two of them saved the recording. So, take it away, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Coming up later in the program, we'll be slowly torturing Terry Christian to death. But first... Now, while I pass a few pleasant hours dripping boiling oil into my producer's abdominal cavity, you can catch up on your adolescent monsters as we spotlight acne-plagued werewolves and skateboarding vampires. In The Lost Boys, we visit the murder capital of the USA, where sundry teenage idols are posing with plastic fangs and silly haircuts, listening to middle-of-the-road metal as they desperately try to ape their elders and betters in the blood-sucking. If you could live forever, don't you think your taste in music would get better? But we're dealing with Hollywood here. The script started out as an adaptation of Peter Pan, just like Hook.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fluffenbusters. My name is Adam. Hope you're well, and I'm joined, as always, by the lovely Big D. How are you, sir?
I'm not too bad, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm stumbling over my words, but apart from that, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
As you can tell, folks, we've gone to massive expense and we've painted the entire set for this one-off show. We've used special non-color lights and high contrast paint to give you a sort of Halloween style episode, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. I even used an actual picture of myself.
As did I. My goodness. If we ever needed reminding that we're from a different age.
Yeah. I've been realizing how long my beard has been getting because I still haven't trimmed it all.
Really?
Yeah. So I am getting to full on Gandalf mode here.
Okay, can I ask? And again,
Mm.
sorry, people, we
Sorry,
do.
folks.
Those who yes, we do digress, quite a bit. But I've got to ask: has the beard reached the stage where, when it's windy and the wind, your beard catches the wind, that it throws you a little bit off balance?
Oh, it reached that last year.
Oh, that's okay then.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, it reached that when I took that trip to London and ran into you.
Oh, good
The
grief!
wind.
Oh,
I'd had moments before with wind caught it, and it's just like, what the hell? I mean, I'm
wow.
not unused to it because I have long hair. I've had long hair for nearly 3 decades now, so I'm used to the wind blowing it around a bit, but not used to my beard doing that. So it was a bit like, what the hell is this?
It's definitely old man problems.
Mm.
It's something, and let's face it, I know this is a completely different film, but we never mentioned this during our previous recording of a possible Tolkien film that you might see in December. But it always occurred to me that both Gandalf and I've now forgotten his sodding name. White
Aragorn,
Wizard,
Saruman.
Saruman. God, I'm doing really well today, aren't I? But you imagine those two wizards stood on the top of one of the two towers, Isengard, and they're perfectly fine. But with beards that long, surely they'd be in danger of being blown off the tower.
Well, no, you have that wonderful shot where when Saruman's invoking the winds
Yeah,
to brave the Fellowship on Caracadras, and Christopher Lee is there, and the wind machine is giving it some chops. But the thing is, it's Christopher fucking Lee.
it's great. Yeah, he can do it. Yeah, that's true,
I
actually.
think the wind would be too afraid to even dare trying to move his beard in a way to discommode him.
By the way, you win 50 bonus points for using that word. Well
Yes!
done. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you might just think that this is another example of us just going off on a random tangent. And admittedly, we do that
Yeah.
during movies. But Christopher Lee is kind of relevant to what we're talking about today. Look at
Yes.
that segue.
Yeah.
Because for this special Halloween episode, we wanted to do something that was really in the spirit of Halloween, but
Mm.
also was a film that has had a lot more impact than most people
Oh,
realize.
yes.
And it's also a film that was really, like, it was a huge DVD thing and a
Hmm.
huge terrestrial TV thing and a huge one of those films you watched at Halloween until streaming. And then since then, it's been a lot harder to find, and
Yeah.
its sort of legacy. I know that's a big word, but it does feel like it's sort of becoming one of those unknown films. And that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is The Lost Boys,
A true classic.
directed by Joel Schumacher and responsible for really changing the sort of attitude towards vampires in vampire films in Hollywood.
Absolutely. I was having to think about it, and really, you have the obvious ones with the films with Dracula, which have a very traditional ideas.
Mm.
You had this, and then you had Interview with a Vampire, and those are this and Interview. They're really kind of like the touchstones for where the vampire genre went into the 90s. It in on TV, and it's kind of fascinating.
It's split off in two directions. You've got the more sensual side, the more adult side, and it doesn't matter about age here. I would argue that Twilight has as much Interview with a Vampire as it does Lost Boys, arguably more. But other things like Buffy clearly borrowed more from the
Oh
Lost Boys
yes,
side of things.
absolutely.
Now we'll go into this, but firstly, before we do, there's a couple of rules. And yes, ladies and gents, you'll be very pleased to know that following this recording, I'm actually going to get off my ass and jot these rules down as a fixed format so I can just stick them up on the screen. But the deal is, we won't obviously be playing the film in entirety on YouTube. It'll be like a flick book effect that I've already created for
Yeah,
this. The second thing is we're not going to react to this film. We have seen this film multiple times before. We're going
yeah.
to just start chatting. There's a lot to talk about with this film, especially with Hollywood and stuff. And then we'll just see where the conversation
Mm,
goes. And the
absolutely.
final thing, and this is kind of important for this one more than others, is that we do try and not heavily research the films.
Mm,
Yes, it would be great if I watched all the making ofs and, I had an encyclopedic knowledge of every single fact. But the fact is you can go on and you can get that yourself. We're just talking about like the film, but other things that come into play for us. So
absolutely.
it's not going to be, do you know that this was this and this was this? Because a lot of the stuff you probably already know. And if
Mm,
it's that niche and you've never seen this film before, well, you won't care about it anyway.
yeah, yeah.
So it's good enough for me. Now, we decided, and I think it was a very good idea by D, that we are going to start the film uh, from about 23 seconds in on my copy. The reason is that different streaming platforms will show different versions of the Warner Brothers logo, and they'll sometimes include other studios that are involved in
Mm,
distribution. So if we just said 1, 2, 3, play, we could all be starting at different times. So if you've got a copy of the film, let the film run for a bit, and after about 20 seconds of the actual film starting, you'll see the title come up that says Warner Brothers Presents, and you'll see the sea in the background and a little bit of moonlight on the water. That's where we're going to start from. D, are you all ready to go?
I'm hot to trot.
Lovely. So we will start in 3, 2, 1, go.
There we go.
Lovely. Now I'm gonna throw this one out there, and D, I don't even know if you're aware of this, but
Hmm.
there's a very real chance that this show will actually start with an extra segment,
Oh,
something not connected to each of us. But before I describe that, I just wanted to find out from you, when did
yeah.
you first become aware of this film and where did you first see it?
I think I became aware of it reading. It was probably either SFX or Total Film Magazine,
Cool.
and I'm pretty sure I first saw it on the BBC, maybe in one of
Oh,
their Halloween film seasons on BBC Two when they were doing
oh,
that.
okay.
Um, because in the early 90s, got that's when I got really heavily into film and genre TV in a big way, and
Mm.
it was through magazines, SFX, Total Film, Empire, Starburst, all those sort of things. And The Lost Boys was a real regular feature in a lot of these because of its importance.
Mm.
I mean, I, I was talking about this in an interview with Abba. Have to also mention Near Dark.
Yes, which was the same year.
Mm. And those three films, Interview came a little later, but between the three of them, they gave us this modern spin on vampires that has really been hugely influential across film and television going forward. And in a
Okay.
lot of ways, they kind of ruined the Dracula concept
Yeah.
because most Draculas that came after it, after those three productions, have tried to get some of the energy from those, sometimes to their detriment. So it's been kind of interesting.
The old style Dracula as well. When you put that coming up against uh, I hate to say the new generation, but
Mm.
the fact, yeah, this was a film that got kids involved
Yeah,
in fighting these things. And of course, kids don't stand there on ceremony. And while Dracula might be like there doing all of his monologuing and his grand entrances, they're taking the mick as kids would do. And of course, it meant
absolutely.
that after this, whenever you had a crossover like that, and there have been many crossovers, that it just became a bit silly. Like you had to find a way to make either Dracula or whatever bad guy it was, you had to find a way to make him kind of cool as well,
Mm.
or her kind of cool. You had to make them somehow relatable and modern. And if they weren't, well, then they were going to stand out like a sore thumb. In fact, am I right in saying that? Oh gosh, and this is really left field, but didn't wasn't there like a very old school comedy? I'm talking really old school, like 40s and 50s,
Mm.
where people met Frankenstein and people met Dracula and people met
Oh, Abbott and
um,
Costello meet
yeah.
Dracula and the Wolfman and the Mummy. Yeah, there's a
And would
whole
that
thing of those.
was
You
that
know,
would that be that would probably be the prototype for the sort of, yeah, the kind of culture clash. There we go, culture clash
yeah.
that you're having there. And in fact, there's still an element here as well. I mean, this is all about culture clashing. Which, but by the way, folks, as well, this when this was made, and this isn't even like a, oh, I looked this up thing. This is just fact. There was a time, sort of mid 80s, especially early to mid 80s, where there were so many different subgenres and so many different
Mm.
things, but nothing dominated music. So
Yeah.
there was every type of fashion and there was every type of genre and there was every type of music, and it wasn't as like pigeonholed, and people weren't slavishly like focused on one thing as another. And so in the background of this movie, you've got just people wearing all this random stuff. And of course, a lot of this is shot on location, but it's just you can see the diversity back then, and people really didn't give a crap. And I believe anyway in certain areas of America that there's still that sort of mentality where it's about beach life and it's a little bit more chilled and people aren't so focused on one thing or fashion. But
Mm.
by the time you get to like modern day, it's like with the Twilight stuff, for instance. Twilight, if you saw the kids in the film, then the kids would usually be interested in one or two things. They would have one or two types of fashion. They would have one or two interests. They would have one or two influences. Whereas here, even amongst the vamps, they all have different influences on what they wear, what they're doing. You have random scary guy riding a a car in the sky, which is a bit weird, but there we go. There's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and it's a real it gives it a real sense of authenticity because I mean this is how people would have been,
Yeah.
especially in a holiday town like this. 'Cause that's what
Mm.
this is. It's a resort town effectively, but it's such a fascinating film. I mean, for one thing, I knew that Joel Schumacher directed. I hadn't realized that Richard Donner produced it.
He was going to right. So there's a couple of things I have to admit because
Hmm.
I've been a fan of this. I do have some extra knowledge. Apologies, folks. That doesn't mean I'm Wikipediaing this. It's just it's the way it is. But Donna was originally down to direct this at one point.
Okay.
And it was going to be something lighter. But then again, and this is where I first saw the movie, I found some facts out about this before the first time I'd even seen the film, because I saw this on the BBC as part of a horror season. And I don't know about you, Dee, but that horror season was introduced by somebody. Now, did you have the film introduced or not? And don't worry if it's
I
not,
I
but
can't remember. I
okay.
remember that they did have a habit of of especially in the early 90s, they would have people presenting
Because you had like
films.
Alex Cox and Videodrome,
Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
mean
you
I
had
mean I mean the version of Terminator I had recorded for so long before I ever got hold of a proper VHS had an opening bit where it was introduced by someone.
wow. I know. Tarantino did some intros once as well,
Yeah, yeah.
and Jonathan Ross's show as well. He used to do like some double bills. God, I miss Jonathan Ross's double bills. But for this guy, I believe it was Doctor Horrible.
Oh, yeah,
No, not Doctor. Was it Doctor? Oh,
Yeah, Steve
no.
Steve Steve Coogan's creation.
Uh, I don't know if it was him or not.
I,
I
I
know
f-
the
I
actor
I'm
was
pr- I'm
different.
pretty sure they did use that character to introduce a film series.
Oh, fantastic. So hopefully this show will have either started with that, or I have spoken to another gentleman about recreating the style, let's just say, of the old show. I
Hmm.
am going to react to something on screen, by the way. Uh, Casual mention of smoking and growing marijuana in a film. Way good old 80s. Fantastic. Back when nobody gave a crap.
Yeah, it's weird having to come back around to that, where so much of what I watch and listen to is people discussing getting edibles and in a delivery from the pot pharmacy, and it's just like, man, it's so great that that's become much more acceptable.
This was a whole, I don't say genre film, but it was part of that group of films that was kid horror. Like
Hmm.
it was, I mean, I'd imagine it was a 15 at least,
Yeah,
first time on
I'm pretty
release,
sure.
just for the
Um,
gore.
yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
mean, apart,
the 80s was kind of rife with that sort of horror. Had a real. It was when VHS became really hit its stride,
oh,
and oh,
oh, oh, sorry. Oh, right.
it's the meme.
Okay. What do I say? Uh, Tim Capello. Very few people, like sometimes in a movie, oh, you'll get this actually, you'll get like the lady in Harry Met Sally after Meg Ryan does her thing, who the director's mother, I think, who says I'm have what she's having. You'll have people in films who have tiny moments, and for some reason it just connects and becomes a meme. Tim Capello dancing on stage with his hot pants, buffed up to the nines with a saxophone, and he was a very accomplished saxophonist with chains around his neck, singing "I Still Believe," which is an absolutely banging song, and I'm not going to be able to get away with any soundtrack to this film at all. But he's on screen for about 2 minutes, and he still does conventions in the States based off of this, and he is just a brilliant, lovely, positive man. And I'm sorry, Dee, I'll let you get back. I can't. What? He's just on screen. What can I do? He's a man's man from the 80s, folks. That's what we aspired to be.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it's.
think it was Tina Turner who suggested the codpiece to him.
I mean, she knew what she was talking about.
There you go.
If you're going to take anyone's advice, it's going to be Tina Turner.
Apparently, they filmed a whole music video, and yet none of
Wow.
the extra footage is there. I mean, if there was ever a way to have a good DVD special edition, the Tim Capello "I Still Believe" cut. I
Oh,
mean, that's what
yeah.
you want. Other things as well. Unfortunately, Dee, because I've already done the still movie for this, it means that I've looked at every single frame. So, for instance, I know that behind our boss, which, by the way, another nod to the 80s tactic that people started to do of using the good guy as a bad guy.
Mm.
So, thinking about the Robocop meme, but he stood in a store and behind him is the adult section because back then nobody cared. But if you look the other way, Goonies is actually up on one of the plinths, and it's
Oh,
like a
yeah.
nice little nod to Donna. So, I'm sorry, folks, I'm not going to go that crazy. I promise you. I promise you. Oh, look at those
Oh,
fashions.
yeah.
So this film had was always a it was advertised to me at the time as just being a fun, like, kids adventure film, kids action film. It was like before I first saw it, I just thought it was going to be like The Goonies, except a little bit more. And to be
Mm.
honest, it doesn't get that heavy until later on. But the way it
Yeah,
sets
that's
up
true.
the characters is really nice.
It does. It's a wonderful character. I mean, I was actually recently Goonhammer have been doing a century for vampire, where
Mm.
they've been going back over vampire movies from the last 100 years, and they recently did do The Lost Boys,
Oh, fantastic.
and even then they pointed out that you know what, there's a bit more depth than you'd kind of expect in a lot of cases to some of these characters. It's not perfect. A couple of like the mum kind of disappears towards the back section of the film,
Yep.
but it does have a lot to it, which is to the characters, which is not always common for this sort of film. It's easy for this sort of film to be very two-dimensional in the characters it's getting across. This though just kind of nails it. You get everything you need to know about almost everyone right away.
Yep. And and let's face it as well, the whole film actually tilts almost in that you have and look, you have some actors here, and those of you who are watching or who at least then watch the film based off of us talking about it, which would be amazing if you did. I just noticed, by the way, that weird old doll of an old lady floating in the background. That's really weird. And Corey's fashion sense is a horror pick in its own right, but it was the 80s, folks. That's what people got away with. But the deal was that like the older actors, you had Kiefer, who was obviously on his path to becoming a well-known actor. Obviously, with
Mm,
his father, he was always going to be he was always going to have that little extra step and that little extra advantage. But then you've got Jason Patrick, who even then like didn't want to do this film. He was like, "No, I'm not interested." And famously, he's one of those actors that his agent literally has to pull him onto projects. I mean, he's gotten a
mm,
lot busier about doing it recently, because he can do quieter, smaller things that he's more into. But back then, he didn't want to do this at all. And then you had Diane Wiest or Weist, and people say it in different ways, but she had literally just won an Oscar before she did this film.
oh
Like
wow.
literally, yeah. So you know how we have, let's face it, the hot new thing gets an Oscar and then goes and does an art film.
Mm,
No, Diane Wiest went, nah, I'm gonna go off and do a vampire film with Joel Schumacher. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's no problem at all. I just love the way that you've got this grounding, but because the older actors are so serious, they they don't go over the top, and at the end they almost streamline their roles down. Like Kiefer barely talks. Jason is very, very like it's quite a small performance that you'll
Mm.
notice he's hugging his brother, and both of them constantly arms around each other, hugging. Like you can tell they actually got on really, really well, and they're playing on that bond. But then by the end of the film, it's the younger kids taking over,
Mm.
and they get kind of the big moments.
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down basically to the younger brother wanting to save his brother.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's the younger brother that becomes the hero, which is a huge tragedy of this entire film. Not because of the way that the characters are, but because of what happened to the cast.
Mm.
I will say, by the way, that that young lady, if you do get the chance again, watch the scenes with that young lady in. So that comic is the comic that the guys nicked from the comic store. Irony, because of course, if they nick some other comics, they might know how to survive vampires. But also
Mm.
during the initial scene where Keith's character actually tries to chat her up, her boyfriend during the shot accidentally clocks her in the face,
Oh,
and it clearly wasn't intentional. But you guys saw it in the shots. I was like, oh god! And so her performance in this film is she's being beaten up, she's being jostled around, and then she's being killed. Congratulations, lady. So it's tough. Oh, and God, I'm becoming a bit Wikipedia this entry, but I've got to say, do you recognize the grandpa from anything?
ah,
And I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue. It is not in the real world.
oh, sorry, I'm just. Uh,
Oh, no, don't worry. I know. The thing is, as well, we've got a screen full of comics, which is actually really distracting to me as well, because I'm like, do I remember some of those? You realize, by the way, some of the comics in this scene now probably makes for the most expensive set dressing ever.
yeah, and this. I mean, this was late '80s. This was still before comic books had even really taken off in the way they had done in the early '90s.
Yeah, this was when they were very still, I suppose, niche.
Yeah,
Hang on, did I see a Doom Patrol comic there? I think I did just for a second.
I know I spotted
Oh,
Rom.
of course. Well, if you did then, because that was something, because I know when he talks about labeling, he mentions Superman. And since this is Warner Brothers and
Yeah, I mean there is a lot of
Cable's
DC on
own
display
DC,
here,
yeah.
and Rom was a bit of an outlier because Rom was at the time Marvel published Rom. Uh, s- Diversion. Rom the Space Knight was this really clunky
Mm,
wind up tin toy ro-
yep.
robot looking thing whose big gimmick was he had a working blaster. There's a name for it. I've forgotten what the name is, unfortunately. But Marvel, as they were apt to do in the '80s, licensed the character, and they put out a comic that had no business being as good as it was, to
Mm,
the extent that things that they introduced in Rom the Space Knight, they still kept using, but they when they lost rights to Rom, they had to work around him so
okay.
they could reference the greatest of the Galadorian Space Knights, but they could never use him. They could use the Dire Wraiths, but not him. And it's just kind of funny because they made him quite a big thing in some of Marvel's cosmic comics, and then I, Hasbro eventually got the rights to him and made him part of the broader IDW verse that IDW were doing for Transformers and GI Joe and all that stuff. So sorry, ramble over. That just
No,
struck me as interesting. It's also fun because Ron was all about finding. He was exposing these monsters that lived among us in human form. So
there you go.
very apt.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I think what's lovely about the way that they do it here is they don't exactly hide the fact that these guys are at least they're bad guys, and
Oh
you
yeah,
see in the opening scene anyway, like not too many people rip doors off or rip roofs off, or and it's like it's pretty much it's set up pretty obviously. Also the costumes as well, which oh gosh, uh, Bill, oh I've now forgotten his name, Bill from Bill and Ted.
oh, Alex Winter.
Alex Winter, there we go. Who I believe was actually had a slightly different actor's name here. I think some of these guys all did anyway, because back then, like you had to have like specific actor names, and Equity was a lot more serious about stuff like this.
Mm.
But yeah, just they all look so unique. I tell you what, though, it scare the crap out of me because I had reference. I was for those who don't know. So I come from the south of England. So I came from Bournemouth, and while Bournemouth nowadays is a really not a nice place to visit for all sorts of reasons, and I certainly wouldn't go down and spend any time on the beach after dark. Back when I was younger and the town was definitely in better times, I would often take a lot of photography at night time, or I'd go for rides on the beach at night, even like all through the year as well. And so you just had this wonderful openness about like you're bombing along and the waves are crashing in and you've got the sea mist and everything's just that, and you've got that also that thrill because if you hit one bank of sand the wrong way, that's it. You're going to wipe out and you're not going to know anything. You're just going to get a face full of sand.
Yeah, yeah,
And so there were,
it's
there were there were loads of little elements to this that I related to, and even as well the whole idea back then as well of the kid trying to join in with the cool gang, the kid trying to be part of the in team, especially when they're a stranger, and also this kid having the guts to still like threaten and push back. And let's face it, what our main hero is doing here, challenging four guys who've gone to like the middle of nowhere, and he's just tried to take a swing at their leader, and yet he's still got the guts to do it. Fair play to him.
yeah. You do get a sense that that's kind of what sells David on bringing him further in. The fact that yeah, this guy does have some guts to him.
Yeah, and they add in as well. They've got the law. This is a lovely thing as well. Joel Schumacher, and again at this time, it's it's such an odd time for him as a director because he'd done St.
Mm.
Elmo's Fire. He was then going to go on to do a whole host of other films. He was going to, for comic fans, he was going to then do Batman Forever, which I will be clear here because we're going to do Batman at some point in the future. I know it. Batman Forever, I walked out of the cinema almost in tears because I hated it so much. But everyone else seemed to love it. Everyone.
I mean, Batman Forever was a massive hit.
It was a huge hit, and Joe was the talk of the town. But the thing was that the studio, and again, something very familiar to people nowadays, the studio pushed him to go a lot further with what
Mm.
they called the toyetic look, making
Yes.
everything look like a live action. So you've had bombs in recent memory, so like we all know about Joker 2. But the weird thing is that Joker 2 was a sort of bomb that, although it was catastrophically bad, like it's become like a footnote. People barely remember that it was
Yeah.
even a film.
Yeah. But
Batman and Robin, on the other hand, which by the way wasn't as big a flop,
mm,
but was pushed by press as being this huge, wonderful movie right up until the studio stopped paying them to say it, then
yeah.
became a disaster. And Joel's career just, just, well, he struggled after that. I mean, he did do like Super 8 and he did other things, but like he ended
I
up
mean,
apologizing for the film.
yeah, and that's sad. I mean, it took him doing. I mean, Tigerland was a film that kind of got him back on people's radar
Yeah.
in a big way, and then Phone Booth. But even then, you look. I'm just looking at his filmography, his credits on IMDb.
Mm.
And the last thing he directed was some episodes of House of Cards. Before that, I mean, he still put out some solid movies. I mean, he did he did that musical of Phantom of the Opera with Gerard Butler,
Yeah, yeah.
number 23 with Jim Carrey, which is really interesting. Veronica Guerin with Claire Blanchett, which
Mm,
is very Oscar baity, but it's still by no way a bad movie.
yep.
And even before, let's say he did 8mm. I mean, hell, A Time to Kill, The Client, Falling Down.
Oh, Falling Down.
Yeah,
A film
that's
that I was actually my first film,
yeah.
and when I said sorry, let me clarify. It was the first film I ever was involved with in terms of the making of was a fan film that somebody made at college based on Falling Down, and it was a comedic film called Falling Over, and it wasn't, trust me, it wasn't highbrow, but it was the first time that I'd been involved with anything, and it had like the guy who did it did little videos and did the covers and all. And unfortunately, the covers got lost to the sands of time. But apparently, there's still the original footage out there somewhere of me with long hair just blatantly falling over in the middle of Boscombe. I don't know what, but yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. But these films like Falling Down was huge,
Yeah,
and it was
he did.
definitely sorry, it was one of those as well that had like prompted a lot of conversation. I
Yeah,
don't
and he did. I mean, he did Flatliners as well, and so his filmography is by no means lacking. It's a really good filmography. It's just Batman and Robin is what a lot of folks remember him for. Sadly, he has now passed,
Yes.
Joel Schumacher, but his legacy is way more interesting than people tend to give it credit for.
Mm. And he's brought, I think, a really nice sense of artistry to all of the backgrounds. And just the fact that
Mm,
they're meeting not just in a lair, but it's a lair that was caused by an earthquake, and you've got clearly a lot of stuff in the background, a lot of junk, but a lot of good stuff as well. And like everything, I wouldn't say sumptuous, but the three or four different main sets are all really interesting.
mm,
And then on top of that, you have these actors. So like apparently as well, Jason actually did he had a lot of input into the script. Again, he didn't want to do this originally because it was a very vacant, heroic, bland role.
mm.
But as he put more into it, and he worked with Kiefer as well, they did. Sorry, is it Kiefer or Kiefer?
Uh, I've always heard it pronounced as Kiefer.
Kiefer, that's cool then. But they work together on a lot of the stuff, which I get the feeling is why the dialogue is actually quite trimmed down for both of them.
Mm.
Oh, and there's if you look online for this, by the way, folks, there are a lot of very interesting, weird modern interpretations on this. Uh, let's just say, yeah, there's a lot, especially based on the relationship between the two males. So don't be shocked if you see some fan fiction in there somewhere. It's fine.
I mean, let's be honest. Vampires
There's
are,
always going to be eroticism and a
yes.
lot of yeah, it doesn't matter who it's between. It just in the 80s, I think no, I it's not that they tried to hide it, or I
They,
just don't think it was taken, especially by the main publications that covered this.
mm,
It definitely wasn't taken as such, and because you've obviously got the lead female in there, and she's felt, let's face it, it's a very 80s role for a lady as well. It's, it wasn't really taken any other way, but a lot of people have looked at it since and gone, yeah, it's very similar to like the Batman and Robin kind of cod pieces and musculature, and there's a bit of an underlying there, and there's a little bit of an
yeah,
underlying here. I
yeah,
kind of like it. I have to
yeah.
admit,
It
I kind of
works.
like it. It works, and it's cultish as well.
Yes, you do get the sense that he's literally drunk the Kool-Aid, you know. So, uh, Man,
They
it's so
are
f-
a happy
it's so
happy band of characters.
that's the other thing. They are genuinely having fun.
Mm.
It's it's it is rare quite often with vampires at this point to actually just sort of they're brooding and torturing. No, these guys they're having a laugh.
Mm.
They are quite literally dead and loving it.
Yeah. And I've seen so many like that's the way you can tell how a film is viewed, I think, nowadays. It used to be like how the DVD was marketed and how many special editions. Now, without DVDs, the only way you can really look at how a film is known by the general public is to look on Etsy and look at the fan posters that are sold for these. And
Yeah,
guys hanging from a bridge is probably one of the like the main things that people remember this film for. And I'm like, really? Is that it? But yeah,
yeah. It's a hell of an image, and
I
it
wish I'd seen this at the cinema.
I know, right? How, how good would this have looked on the big screen?
I wonder if they do this. This has got to be something. I will investigate, but hopefully the Prince Charles. It's one of those things that maybe they do screenings of
Hmm.
once in a blue moon.
I mean, Cineworld. I have a Cineworld Unlimited pass because
Mm,
I may have mentioned before. I've had one of these things now over 20 years, just because it seems such common sense, you know.
good grief!
But they do um seasons of movies. So I mean, last week I went and saw Aliens on the big screen.
Oh wow,
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant, and they're doing stuff for Halloween, uh,
fantastic!
horror season. So we got American Psycho, The Witch, Corpse Bride, John Carpenter's The Fog. Oh, that's tempting.
Mm,
Constantine, The Descent, a 20th anniversary screening. That makes me feel ancient.
wow.
Uh, and they're showing all of the Twilight movies,
Mm,
which they're not my cup of tea, but that's the first one's coming on upon 20 years old. I think the first book certainly is 20 years
yeah.
old at least. It's kind of crazy. But I was just checking to see if they had the Lost Boys on, because it's the sort of thing that I imagine they would do for one of these things, you know?
Yeah, it would definitely be worth it. And I
Hmm.
do think though it's not because other films where they've had a series, and obviously we'll talk about what did happen after this. But a nice little bit of ramping there, by the way. Just a nice little
Hmm.
in camera trick. But because this wasn't part of a series, I think it suffered more than others. If they'd done, so I know they had plans to do the Lost Girls, which
Okay.
after something like 10, 15 years of them doing it, it took so long that in recent years, whenever they've talked about doing something and calling it the Lost Girls, people have taken the title to mean, oh, they're just recasting and oh, it's modern
Yeah.
casting and it's all and it's like no, they were always aiming to do this, but because they never sort of got into gear and did it, it just became this sort of weird standalone. But because of that as well, for the longest time, it never had a chance to have a poorly performing sequel that
Hmm.
undermined the original. And by the time that something did come out, it didn't really matter anymore.
No, I mean, I saw that apparently there were two sequels,
There were, yes.
which I hadn't. I knew there had been one. I hadn't realised there was a second, a third one.
Mm.
But
There was I think the Tribe was the
yes,
second, and that had a bit of a let's just say some fan favorite cameos at the end, and then afterwards, then there was another that I think the fan favorites were then had more mainstream roles, but it was just it wasn't really made with a lot of money. It was poorly
Hmm.
performed, and I think by that point as well, the issues with the cast and them trying to work around them meant that the whole project was flawed. But um, so anyway, very very quickly, grandfather, you might have seen him recently if you watched the original Tron.
Yeah, I did see that he was on the cast list for the original Tron,
So
which I'd
he's both
forgotten.
a professor, but he's also like the big old mainframe wearing the really weird stupid hat.
Hmm.
And it's lovely that an actor on his resume can have such like distinct roles. And by the way, there's been a whole lot of talk about Grandfather over the years. There's even been a comic that talks about like his backstory
Okay, that's interesting.
because of the stuff. But the biggest thing, and I wanted to chat to you about this actually.
Yeah.
When you saw this film, was it at a point where any of the cast were considered big stars? Because fame has sort of come and gone at different times for all of this cast.
I mean,
So, what
probably
was it
only
like for
Kiefer,
you?
to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd seen Jason Patrick's name on a few things. I think I saw this before, certainly before Speed, so definitely before Speed 2,
Oh my
which he was
goodness,
in.
yeah.
But really, it was Kiefer because I'd seen Young Guns and Young Guns 2 before, Lost Boys, and he was kind of the name actor that I was aware of.
Mm,
Everyone else, not so much. I think I recognised Alex Winter because of Bill and Ted.
yes. A lot
First
of
time I saw it.
people, I mean, it was one of those, that was definitely like a cinema fact before
Hmm.
the internet was a thing. It was like, oh, did you realize that he was in this film? It's like, well, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's clearly the same actor. But
Yeah,
because, let's face it, the roles are so contrasting in terms of of their tone. It's like, well, an actor is allowed to play more than one role, so it's a good thing.
yeah,
By the way, I was always jealous, even though I had lovely dogs growing up with the family, and I wouldn't have shared them for the world. I was kind of jealous that he had a husky.
yeah,
The husky was such a good boy, and they
yeah.
do get their own credits at the end, folks. It is worth it. But
Yeah.
no,
S- I was going to say, someone I used to work with had a husky, and they were the most adorably cuddly dog. Very silly dog, but also very cuddly.
they do so well to frame. They've got nods to horror films
Hmm.
in this so much. It, like you're seeing a fun scene, but one side is framed like a normal film, and the other's filmed like a horror. And
Yeah,
there's a little bit of Evil Dead in this as well.
yeah.
Just a tad, just a
It's
little bit.
really well shot.
And it is, yeah, that's the thing. It's really well shot, and the horror elements are light. They're light for maybe the first half of the film, and yeah,
Yeah.
there's and like we talk about. I think there was a dolly shot. Was it a dolly shot in Super 8 or something, where it's just slowly creeping in on
Hmm.
a room? And there's tricks from the same director you can see here with the zoom out or the use of darkness is crazy. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic now. By the way, folks, this is going to be one of the rare recording where I will outtalk D probably 3-1 on this because there's stuff here as well, really relevant for and hopefully genuinely interesting.
I'm finding it fascinating, to be honest. I'm generally enjoying this.
I think it's just because I've audibly pinned you down with my constant drone and you can't move now. But here's the thing, we're going to go back to what was a previous podcast recording, which knowing our current schedule at this rate might actually come out about 6 months after, where I we talked about the idea that at the moment, at the time of recording, Sydney Sweeney is still the hot Hollywood person.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying she's the most successful, but for the last 6 months, almost any project in Hollywood has probably included her in their pitch to the various studios because she is the big star. and you get this.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
I think it's about 7, 8 years ago we had the first season of Stranger Things,
Yes,
and
yeah.
we had the character of Eleven, and then that
Mm,
actress became huge. We then had Wednesday for 3 years ago, and General
yeah.
Ortega became huge.
Mm,
Now, by the way, I just realized just how many comics he had on his desk. He's literally got hundreds. I'm so jealous. He also, by the way, has a poster for Reform School Girls, and he has a picture of Rob Lowe showing his midriff cloth, which I always thought was brilliant. Again, lots of subtext in Joel Schumacher movies. But
oh
anyway,
yeah.
but so the reason I'm saying all of this, folks, is because of this film and the Goonies, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, so the younger brother that you see on the phone here, and the guy with the sort of blonder hair at the shop, the two Coreys, they became huge. They
Mm,
became massive, massive child stars. Haim, who's the brother, became big just off of this. Feldman
mm,
had this and the Goonies, and they were massive, but they were massive for their personas in these films, not because of a body of work. And if I and look, we know the way things are now. Remember Erica Eleniak, Baywatch, the first
yeah,
season or so?
yeah.
Yeah. So before Pamela Anderson, obviously pinup girl of the year. Hollywood then stuck her in a bunch of movies and then basically chewed up and spat her out. Species, same thing kind of happened. Like
Yeah, Natasha Henstridge, yeah.
yeah, and a lot of them, a lot of these actresses survived. They managed to keep working in shows, but you can tell that Hollywood really pigeonholed them as sex
Mm,
bomb, and that was it. And we've had this as well with the guys. You know, you've got the likes of Timothy Chalamet and other like hot young actors, and I'm saying that because that's how Hollywood portrays them, like Brad Pitt as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Holly, back in the 80s, whereas now it's in management's best interest to control these young stars to the nth degree. They have
Mm,
management teams. They don't do their own social media. If they go out and they're monitored. If they're doing anything illegal, it's monitored. It's all very, very carefully managed. Back in the 80s and even into the 90s, when you had the likes of River Phoenix and other young stars, they were coming incredibly famous very, very quickly. But then Hollywood literally chewed them up, spat them out, and they ended up on drugs and other things. And the two Coreys is a really tragic tale. And they
yeah.
suffered all kinds of abuse, these poor stars. So, in many ways, you are watching that, especially in that final reel with the kids, you are watching the highlight of these guys' careers. Because after this, it all went horribly wrong.
Yeah, it's terribly sad to be fair.
And the thing is that they just have so much charisma. If this, so
Mm,
remember, so again, I go back to Stranger Things, and afterwards, everyone was like, right, well, we want 11 in so 11's got to be in something. But also, Steve has to come back because the character of Steve is so good. We need that character. There and if
mm,
if there wasn't another season of Stranger Things, they would have put Steve into something else, and they did. He's in Free Guy. He's in other stuff. People love that character. They use them straight away. In this film, you have 3 or 4 fantastic kid actors who are doing an amazing job. And the funny thing is that 2 of them, the 2 Coreys, barely starred. I don't think any of them starred in even a decent movie ever again that was well received.
mm.
And the worst thing about poor old Corey Haim is that like it was so poor for him and life was so difficult after this that when Joel Schumacher actually did the Batman films, he tried as a sort of redemption arc for himself to get Corey in, possibly as Robin. And in the end, Corey Haim ends up making a brief cameo as a gang member in Batman Forever.
Huh.
And it's the
Okay, I didn't
saddest
realize
thing.
that.
Yeah, and it's I didn't even realize as well. But I was looking at this guy's kind of descent, and it's such a shame. Sorry, there's so much about it's more as well because these were all this was how Hollywood treated kids back then.
Mm,
This is how it treated talent. If you weren't careful, and what makes it really bad is that you had Jason Patrick, who's actually a very responsible actor. I mean, I I think he helped fund Narc as well with Ray Liotta, and that is a powerhouse of a movie. That is an
mm,
absolutely incredible movie. And you had Kiefer, who admittedly had his wild times and then had the stuff with Julia Roberts, which ironically then led into damaging Speed 2 and not sorry, not Julia Roberts, but he had the Julia Roberts stuff anyway, which was all a bit weird. And you had some of the other cast that had their fair share of problems, and yet they never had anyone to lean on to kind of help pull themselves through.
yeah, it's it's a shame really because, like you say, it's a different time nowadays where you do still hear stories about people who've become famous quite young, but more often than not, they do have teams who are in place who can help them. So,
Mm,
or are in place to give them some boundaries to work within, which is, I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it must be to be given all the fame that these guys were off of this film, pretty much,
yeah, and they
and the
were.
expectation. And
I think these guys, if I'm right, I'm just gonna quickly, and I am going to IMDb now, guys. Apologies. There we go. Cool. I just wanted to check the year again, but I I, I did see because I think I was looking at something researching before this, and Corey Haim came up, and I looked, and these guys as well were attending like the Oscars, and they were attending like big events,
mm,
and yet they didn't really have much in the way of headlining stuff to their name. But it was because they'd made such an impression. And then on the flip side, of course, you have the bad guy of this film, which is sort of borrowing from our previous, now apparently lost forever recording of RoboCop, which we'll then have to come back to, and of course the inspired choice then to have Ronnie Cox, who was Mr. Family, Mr. Safe, Mr. America, and also a guy from that '70s show who again was lovely, who played
yeah,
Clarence Boddicker. The two nice guys be the bad guy, and so in this film you have the bad guy is a character actor who's played almost every nice, lovable guy in every film he's been in, and you'd never think that he was evil. It's just so well done.
I mean, everything in his performance up until the big reveal, there's very little to give it away, which I do. In this film's quite good for that. I've always enjoyed that about this film.
Now, I am very, very pleased to share this moment with you, D. This is our first love scene together. I believe we've done
Oh
five or
my.
six films and we've yet to do a love scene. So, so I had some issues taking stills of this. Though it shouldn't, and not because it was difficult, because they don't show anything, but
Mm.
because there were so many double exposures, because they keep fading in. It's ridiculous.
Just had.
Oh, was that it? I thought it was longer. Over too soon, story of my life. But anyway, um, by the way, I should say as well that uh, Jamie, I think it's Jamie Gertz, I want to say,
Yeah.
is the. So here's a challenge for you. Um, how much do you think Jamie Gertz and her husband, and I will say as well, husband slash business partner, much do you think they're worth nowadays?
Oh.
And believe me, aim high.
Oh wow. Are we talking double-digit millions?
About 13.8 billion.
Whoa.
Yeah. So after this film, she did a lot of other roles, but she then married a businessman who owns a couple of, I believe, baseball teams and maybe a basketball team. Um, but I think a lot of the emphasis as well is that she has sort of, I believe from what I've read, because I was fascinated by this,
Mm.
that there's been this, that she's sort of really gotten involved in the business side of things. So she's not done a lot of stuff. She's not become a producer in Hollywood. It's just the corporate side of things,
Well,
yeah,
good
which
for
a
her.
lot of people do. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that's fantastic. That's really, really nice. And also that it
Mm.
was she was brought onto this project. She wasn't initially part of this project, but she was brought on because they needed a lead character, sorry, a lead female, and Jason Patrick had worked with her before and felt comfortable. Now, when I was a kid, I would
Okay.
see these kind of 80s love
Mm.
these love scenes in 80s movies. And all 80s movies, I mean, they're totally cringe, but this is, I use the word cringe, there's a rarity. But it's just that was a thing that 80s films had. But of course, when you're a kid, you'd be like, oh, it must be great to be an actor. You get to do these weird love scenes with these beautiful women. But
Mm.
actually, I think he got her on board because they'd actually worked together and he trusted her. So, and from
That
everything I've heard, he's one of the most generous, supportive people in Hollywood, especially with film projects. So it
that's
actually must have been a really good set for her.
yeah. I mean, that's because especially not as well as him trusting her, she had to have been able to trust him. So
Yeah.
yeah, that says a lot. Because I mean, intimacy coordinators are still not exactly a common. They're more common now than they were, but you still hear stories. So
God,
fair
yeah.
play
And
to
this was
Schumacher for being that supportive of
oh, look at this good boy.
Patrick Stewart.
So yeah, both dogs, by the way, both dogs get a credit at the end. And
Oh,
yes,
that's nice.
one of them is both of them though. Both of them have moments where they're meant to be vicious and attacking. Both of them are just furiously wagging their tail, and the most they ever do is rip some stuff. But the rest of the time, the dog is there going, "Look, I'm happy. I'm happy. I want hugs. I want pets."
Yeah, it must be so hard for dogs like that to, I, I, to be able to, because we think of it as plain, but the dog isn't. The dog's,
Yeah,
and some of it is good editing, but man, you just think about what must have been like on the set where Schumacher's going, right, you have to run because he's going to tear you to pieces, and this dog's just going,
I saw a little shot of Frank Miller's Batman in the background there.
oh,
Oh, I'm thinking. Oh, maybe. Hang on. Was this when Dark Knight Returns was coming out? Would this have been
oh,
filmed around that time?
oh, it might have been actually, yeah.
Oh, for those who don't know as well, headscarves were a thing. Headscarves were a thing. They were a thing in America. I don't know
Yes.
anyone here who willingly wore a headscarf. Don't fool yourself. I know there's 80s Halloween costumes, folks, and you'll at least one person in every large party will have a headscarf on, and they'll think it or headband and think they're Rocky. But the fact was, outside of Stallone and a few beach communities, no one in this country ever got that cool with it. It was just a thing.
I mean, I've owned more than one bandana in my time. I've just never really. It's just been easy to just put a hat on, you know.
Well, if let's face it as well, especially 80s and 90s, if you liked rock or metal, like it was
Yeah.
big oversized belts with about 3 tons of lead and steel in the buckle that was usually then enameled
To within an
and
inch of
had a
its
round.
life.
Yes. What happened? Do people still wear like huge oversized metal buckles?
I mean, we have one of those MacArthur Glen designer outlets locally, and there's always, for as long as it's been there, there's always been at least one, not a proper shop, but one of those stands
Yeah.
that does belts and buckles, and they just have the full shebang of massive buckles to take your pick from.
Okay. God, I think I've still got pictures where I'm wearing a half a pound of lead. And it's I look at it now, it's just the most ridiculous thing. Like again, sorry, I am doing some reacting at the screen here. Grandpa, Grandpa's reacting to everything. All the way through this
Mm.
film, he knows exactly what's going on. I should say as well, fun fact for you, this was the film where I first found out what root beer was. Because Grandpa's fridge contains Oreos,
Mm.
which, if you're in the UK and you watched this at the time, you would have no idea what Oreos was, because Oreos weren't in the UK. They
Yeah, I
just
mean,
simply
I only
wasn't
knew
a thing.
because of I I when we were in Hong Kong, I bought American comic books from one of the shops,
There you go.
and they had the adverts, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's true, actually. Yeah, I did start to pick up that and Bazooka Joe's bubblegum. I started to pick up some things from there. But root beer was the other thing. And I think it was about a year or two after this that for some reason I was in a cafe and my mum said, like, I could get root beer was an option, but it was like 50p more than anything else. And I actually felt genuinely guilty because money was always tight and I didn't want to buy this thing because I thought I might not like it. And you have the thing when you're a kid where you can't eat a meal, you don't want to eat a meal, but then there's like jelly and ice cream afterwards or just a pudding. And of
Hmm.
course the joke is, oh well, you can't eat your main meal, so you can eat your but you can't eat your pudding, vice
Yeah.
versa. Um, this was a rare occasion where I was actively trying to not to try this thing because I thought it might be nice, but I might not like it. Like offering me jelly and me going, no, I really don't want it. And yeah, root beer. By the time I finally tried it, I was absolutely gutted that I didn't like it. And yeah, as I've grown older and tastes change, I one of the few people that loves root beer now. Root
Ah,
beer and random malt energy drinks. I am that guy that buys that weird carbonated stuff.
fair
And
dues.
oh, sorry, quick bonus for yeah, there's some beautiful editing here, by the way. And yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I just like that they go through these little things, and it's just having these little bits of situational comedy. Just really, really works.
Mm. It does play really well, and they are playing all the hits of vampire lore. It's great that they're working to what people know or
Would
would know.
I'm trying to because I've now got an image in my head for some reason of is it Monster Club?
The Monster Squad.
Monster Squad. That sort of played with a kind of the kid's eye view of monsters as
Mm.
well, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it helped for Universal. We we can remember their recent efforts to do their Dark Universe, but that's all because they had a massive number of hits in the 30s and 40s with
Mm,
their films based on classic stories from folklore. The Mummy, Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, all those came out of Universal, and they kind of defined what those monsters would be for the next century,
mm.
and they've been trying to find ways to monetize them ever since. It's kind
Well,
of fascinating, really.
after this,
Mm,
do you think that because this and Near Dark came out the same year,
yeah.
and I know that there's like a vague family connection between at least a member of each cast, but beyond that,
Mm,
these are obviously two very different creatures. One of them showed so Near Dark showed vampires as kind of sad and pathetic, but
yes,
also
very much.
real like
It showed you
Guys,
it showed you the sharp edge of the vampire. These are vampires with no illusions about them.
yeah,
They
yeah.
they at no point do they try and hide what they are in Near Dark, which does make you question how they've survived so long.
But they also, as well, they do then drum home just how vulnerable they are
Mm,
because they don't have much. Like when stuff goes wrong, they have very little to fall back on.
yeah.
Whereas, yeah, these guys, and I suppose back as well, back at this time, it was still easier for you to survive, like off the grid.
Well, it's also about where they are. I mean, these guys. I remember this is California,
Yeah,
Pacific Midwest, that sort of area. So an area that's very, if not affluent, it's very. I don't even want to say civilized. There's areas that are built up of urbanization, and it takes place within an area, even though it's a holiday town. It's still an area that's been developed over a lot of time.
mm,
Whereas Near Dark takes place, I want to say Texas,
yeah,
one of those parts of the United States that is very flat, very open, and very prone to the sun just
bearing
making
down.
life miserable for everyone. And there's not really anywhere to hide.
Mm.
So
And you've also with I suppose with the beach culture, you've got a lot of transient people, and it showed
mm,
they made efforts as well to show people like grabbing stuff, eating food out of dumpsters, and the fact that they're here, they can get away with it, and also because the culture, the
mm,
culture in these areas was one of the first cultures where there was a nighttime culture. Going back to when this was shown in the, say, late 80s, early 90s in the UK, this was still a time when BBC ended its programming at midnight.
yeah, yeah,
They were it was only a couple of years after this, I think they had a telethon. They only did it once, but a
mm,
telethon was like the first time that they went 24 hours. And to this day, I think that's why they ran it or partly ran it because it was a test to see if they could run 24 hours. But yeah,
mm.
that was the whole like this is before stuff started becoming 24 hours and nightlife. So I don't know if vampires now would have an easier time getting
Mm.
by or a tougher time.
I mean, there's been quite a lot of really good um, material trying to explore that. Um, I've actually read a couple of good comic books recently, or at least for collected editions, that get into that whole idea. So, but and normally most of the vamps are kind of sad,
Mm,
but they're not they're not your Vlad Tepes types. Because people forget, Vlad doesn't live in the castle because he's a vampire. He lives in the castle because he's Count fucking Dracula.
yeah,
M- Most vampires, you think logically, unless they've been smart enough to set themselves up or come, they're gonna be stuck working in a job, probably a nighttime job somewhere,
yeah. Well, wasn't
because
there
that's
that
all they can do.
I mean, it's not a vampire story, but they take a lot from it, and that's the Jake Gyllenhaal reporter
Oh,
film.
Night Stalker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's like he's almost like the human, like he's not a vampire, but there's vampiric elements in there. And
absolutely.
then you've got Kronos as well,
Yeah,
which is that's Guillermo del Toro, I think.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Guillermo is going to do Frankenstein soon, which is great. And at the
I
time of
can't
recording as
wait for
well,
that.
there's a trailer as well for The Bride that's been
Yes.
popping up, which again is I think that's Universal. Is it Universal doing like the way it did with The Invisible Man, trying to take something and put a new spin on it?
Yeah, I think I mean, the whole idea of trying to build a shared universe of all their monsters wisely is now defunct. So
Yeah,
they're now just trying to look at what they have and see what they can do.
Mm.
And the thing is that there are so many creators out there who can put really good spins on things. It's like Del Toro said that, or no, I don't think he said it, but a reviewer said that from what they can tell, the main difference between Del Toro's Frankenstein and other Frankensteins is he's clearly read the book,
Yeah,
which is kind of damning because that's the other. So many of these monsters we learn more about now through pop culture than the actual source material.
yeah, and you think there's a
It,
reason why the books worked. It sort of comes back as well to the comic ideal as well of
mm,
like the comics worked because comic stories were good, but and for a while there was this balance where the films were using the comic stories and they were being more and more faithful to them, and then a switch kind of got hit, and now they're back to using bits of comics and or just titles like Age of Ultron, for instance, for
I
something
mean,
completely different.
in fairness, Age of Ultron the comic was kind of a mess, so I can't blame them too much on that score.
I know, but Age of Ultron in the film was like Afternoon of Ultron.
Yeah, it the the main problem there is that because they didn't use Hank Pym.
Yeah, they were kind of
Yeah, and I
like,
understand why, because Hank's a difficult character because I've seen so many writers mess him up because everyone, a lot of writers go back to, well, continually the fact that he hit Janet Van Dyne
mm,
quite brutally. In fairness,
that was
they've
that
not
was a
made
rough old series.
hmm, back when he had his Yellow Jacket persona. But the funny thing is, people forget that in the 90s, Marvel had Peter Parker, who, bear in mind, is superhuman, which is not something Hank Pym is. He doesn't have any super strength or anything like that. But they had hit Peter Parker backhand a pregnant Mary Jane in across a lab, and admittedly, the story was in not a brilliant story, but people have tended to ignore that. Whereas Hank, it always comes back to
The Ultimate
him
stuff mostly.
him hitting Jan.
Yeah. Well, I think as well
But
they remember as well they did stuff with, was it Marvel Zombies where they
hmm,
also did a little extra bit of nastiness, and it almost became a
hmm.
theme. But
Yeah, it didn't help that Ultimates really went hard on making him a complete asshole as well as being bipolar. Whereas in the mainstream Marvel comics, they've actually dealt with it. A lot of writers since like 2000 have dealt with him much more sympathetically.
mm,
They've just had to work around some of the requirements of editorial because they've been trying to make Hank become more like how uh, he's portrayed in the Marvel films, including his age, which has always been a bit tricky. But they're much more nuanced now in how they deal with the sort of mental illness or not illness, disorder that he has.
there you go,
So,
folks. That is our segue into random stuff for the film completed. We
whoa,
we had to get it in at some point.
yeah, sorry.
No, 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 no. It was a good thing because honestly, I was beginning to genuinely feel guilty. I was like, all I've done is talk about this film. If anyone is discovering this channel and they've lasted this long into one of our podcasts, they must at least like us going off on tangents.
True, you had to know what to expect by now, surely.
By the way, this is so sad. I've just realised, a way to really date this film is they're using torches without LED lamps. they don't have like 300 bulbs on the face of their torch. They just have one old-fashioned bulb.
Or it's like they don't. It's like they're using the torch, not the light on their camera phone.
Oh, their mobile phone, yeah.
Yeah,
I tell you what, that's a really powerful torch, though. That-
it
oh.
really is.
So, so here's the thing. I just want you to. So, you're a vampire. You are strong, and you have few vulnerabilities. But clearly, when you're asleep, it's a problem, and you can
Hmm.
get stabbed, as poor old Bill S. Preston, Esquire, has just found out. So, so I just want you to just keep that in mind, that vampires are at their weakest when they're hanging upside down and asleep.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, the good guys are running away here and trying to get away, and the lovely little moment, and blah, 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 blah. But you just think, what's the last thing you would do if you were a vampire after this? What's the
Mm,
last thing you would do if you know the good guys know where you are and they know that you're vulnerable when you're asleep hanging upside down?
yeah, you wouldn't exactly want to hang around, would you?
You wouldn't want to go back to bed and hang upside down again.
Although
Well,
there's a
let's see if they do that, kids.
I mean, there's a question of having a choice because
Yes.
generally most vampires don't have a choice. They have to go to bed sleep during the daytime.
I like
It's actually
the
it's normally
artistic
regarded as a
view,
bit of a
by the way.
power up to be awake. So
The there's so much going on as well. Like during the film, before the guys go into there, the brothers actually again hugs, going, "Look, I might not be able to help you if I'm in there. I might turn. I might." They're all really honest with each other. This is
yeah,
one of the few things that, in many ways, the good guys don't make a lot of mistakes early on during the film. They're actually doing quite savvy stuff.
yeah,
Apart from maybe setting up a couple of like sun lamps and torching the place, they're doing everything as well as they can do.
yeah. They absolutely are. They they are quite a smart bunch because they are genre savvy.
This is true. Yeah,
Wh-
this is true. Actually, pre-Buffy genre savvy.
Yeah,
And Grandad,
it's
who just doesn't give it. Grandad with his long braids out the back of his head. Can I
y-
age like Grandad, please?
yeah. I mean, he's a dude who's had a life, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, so yeah, according to the comics, he is possibly part vampire. Doesn't spoil anything
Okay.
for the film, but it was
Hmm.
because so many people were because the ending is so slightly odd and nobody quite gets it. The um that for the longest time people weren't entirely sure on the meaning of the ending. Oh, I just realized they got a little banner in the background for Kiss of the Spider Woman with
Yeah.
Raul Julia. Nice.
There's also the fact that it's a video rental shop, which, man, it's so weird that we're now like two decades since they kind of died out.
Video rentals, for those who don't know. So the deal was that the film would come out on rental. It would not be available on any other format. You would not be getting this film any other way. It would have got left cinemas. I think one of them had a Rally Super Burner as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Y-
but they you would then, this video store, unlike your film where the cinema where you had a good chance of at least getting a seat, your local rental store would probably have about 200 copies of whatever the cool new film was, and there were at least 400 people that were interested in getting that film on a Saturday night.
Yep.
So the challenge of you getting a video rental was sometimes quite.
I mean, my video collection expanded exponentially when I discovered X rental copies of movies
Oh yes.
because they were dirt cheap. The the tape had probably been worn to hell and back,
Yep.
but they were dirt cheap. And
Yep.
often, still the only way to get one of these films because it hadn't hit retail yet. Because normally you'd be talking somewhere between 3 to 6 months after theatrical to go to
Yep.
home video, and then another 6 months normally before it hit retail.
If you were lucky, because sometimes they
Yeah.
would just for whatever reason, if it I mean, and it can even be like a region thing, but
Mm,
sometimes they'd release it in the States, but they just wouldn't bother with the UK.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the it's only really fairly recent. I mean, it took a while for them to have stuff coming out even concurrently.
Mm,
I mean, for the longest time, you'd struggle for stuff to. I mean, there were odd occasions where we would get something before the States.
yep.
Normally, something like a Star Wars on occasion.
Yeah, I
Some
think
of
so.
some of the Marvel films hit UK cinemas before the States.
I think I watched. I think the last. I mean, I've obviously had very, unlike yourself, D. I've had very little experience of being abroad in terms of
Mm,
watching films, but I do remember that I watched 12 Monkeys in Hong Kong 6 months before it came out in the UK. But I think maybe Hong Kong was just before America, and then it was the big gap.
Hong Kong could be weird. I mean, I would have been in Hong Kong a few years before you were if you were watching 12 Monkeys out there.
Mm.
But I mean, I saw things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original film, in a Hong Kong cinema. And that's an experience, man, because it was the uncut version as well,
Oh,
with
which
the full
again,
with the
the
full
the full
nunchuck
nunchuck
sequence.
scene.
Yeah,
And people at home going, "Well, what's the big deal with the nunchuck scenes?" Nunchucks were persona non grata to such a level on UK screens. The British government was desperately scared of them
yeah,
because unfortunately of some very tragic things that had
mm,
happened regarding other weapons. And nunchucks were sort of part of this, and the
yeah,
feedback was so bad that in the UK, I mean, like I know most of people probably know this, but um, the whole line everywhere else in the world was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Anyone who knows the brand nowadays will go, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But in
yep,
the UK, it was Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. And they
yeah,
even redubbed the theme song,
yep,
and they they
everything.
they 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 animated over weapons, and the weapons were different in the UK. And like I think Mike fought with a bunch of sausages at one point. It was the
Y-
craziest thing. Oh, can I just say, sorry, very, very
mm,
quickly. Firstly, the vampires did actually go back to sleep. They went back to hanging upside down and they were still asleep. I wish the guys had just had the nerve to go back in and stab another vampire or two. And every time they wake up, another vampire stabbed. But also, they do all this stuff as setting up the home. And then they go, let's tie the dog to the gate and then
yeah,
leave it
and
there. And
they don't
then,
time outside
and,
the door. They
and then
time at the
get
gate.
ready for accidental falling over in 3, 2, 1. Hey! Sorry, folks. There's me.
Oh,
Am I not the biggest proponent of saying this is not a reaction channel? And then I react to stuff on screen. I apologize. But it's the way that these guys genuinely screw up so badly right at the
mm,
beginning. And you think they'd have everything sorted. But of course, they don't know all the rules.
yeah. They're working to pop culture rules and not the rules these vampires actually work under.
and and
It,
and one of the brothers keeps trying to kill the actress, which is just like, yeah, that's not how this is meant to work.
yeah,
So
it
so one thing I don't know if they took from this, but before this film, vampire makeup tended to be a lot more extreme.
Mm.
Like there would be like serpent stuff involved, or like thinking Grace Kelly and Vamp and stuff like that. And this was the first one to do the whole. Well, it's a little bit of eyebrows and some teeth, and I do get the feeling that that's a big influence on Buffy.
Yeah, I mean, you got the contacts, the teeth, and they get a little. They get. They do make them paler when they vamp out, but not
Yes.
by much. Not just enough to make them feel inhuman. And you're right. It was definitely something I think that the team on Buffy took with them, because we couldn't
Fun
discuss a
fact,
film
folks.
and not talk about
This
Buffy.
this was literally my kitchen a week ago. And I'm not joking, by the way. I'm not joking. So you all know this. I actually, yeah, I had various substances blowing out of my sink in my kitchen through no fault of my own. This is one of the reasons why we didn't. This is the third time of recording.
Yep.
So yes,
It, it
so
it took
looking
us
at
a
that,
little bit to get this far.
no, it didn't obviously have blood and guts, but it wasn't that far removed. But no, I like the idea as well. It made, although this film had a really nice touch with the teeth that actually vamp out, because it's
Mm.
not it's not the
Isn't
incisors.
it's not the canines.
No, oh sorry,
It's
that's
it.
it. It's the next one's in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is a nice touch because it makes them it makes them more animalistic.
Mm. Well, I mean, that's closer to the idea of what Orlok had in Nosferatu, because his were the front two teeth, much more like rat's teeth
Mm.
than anything else. So it, like you say, it makes them feel way more animalistic than they are, or than vampires tended to be depicted.
Now, um, a nice little bit of legacy from this film.
Hmm.
For a start, by the way, fair play to Corey, whose character actually approaches somebody expecting the jump scare and still is armed. Well done. But this
Yep.
vampire, who's currently blowing to bits, dies to the song "Good Time Tonight" by Jimmy Barnes and In Excess, which is a good song. It's a good song, and this soundtrack almost accidentally became one of the precursors of the soundtrack compilation album, which became such a big thing that by the mid 90s, the album was being advertised on the back of like almost every film. It was like with music from,
Yeah.
random metal artists. But the weird thing about this, and trust me, there is something slightly interesting about it, is the Good Time Tonight, or Good Times, I think it was called. So Jimmy Barnes and NXS,
Hmm.
recorded, by the way, during something like a 48-hour drink binge, because the artists were famously just hellraisers, or at least Hutchins and Barnes were.
Yeah. I
But
was going to say,
this
but
this
that
came
sounds
out.
like In Excess. Yeah.
The, bear with me a second. I won't cut that out. It's fine. But I am this song went into the charts in the UK, I think, on the back of this film, and did well, or it did okay, and it was played a bit. But the weird thing is, 2 or 3, I think possibly even 4 years later, as a lot of the network radios in the UK, they tend to just, buy blocks of songs. And so you get certain songs popping up again. So, for instance, for years, I had the Faith No More version of Easy pop up. So I'd be like working night shift at Sainsbury's, and the late night love guy would go, "Next up, after the break, Faith No More." And you'd be like, "I really hope it's epic, but it's going to be like, easy for the 15th time." But they started putting Good Times, In Excess, Jimmy Barnes on the playlist, and so many people heard it, and it probably hit that point where it hit radio 2, and then people
Hmm.
went, "Oh, we like this. We've either not heard it before, or we heard it before but we don't know what it is." So this actually came back into the charts 3 or 4 years after this film came out, and of course the video to this song had this film in it. So it was then I got the chance to see it on Top of the Pops, and I was like, why is there a random vampire film in this uplifting, poppy, in excess Jimmy Barnes song? And yeah, it was all because of this. It's it's the vampire equivalent of Seal's Kiss from a Rose. It keeps coming back, and every time you see the video, you're like, why is there elements of Batman in the Seal video? Because
I
it was
mean,
originally from a film.
it helps also that Schumacher directed both music videos.
Yes. Oh, it's worth saying as well. These guys really worked very, very hard on this finale, and it's good. But
Mm,
this whole sequence really has been mostly about the boys. It's been about the boys fighting off stuff, the boys defending. Like you've got your kind of lead actor and your lead villain in David here, but it's not really like this is the face-off, but it's not. And I've
mm,
always been interested in the fact that it's not like an anti-climax of a film. It's really, really good. But it's almost like the actors as well. They've been like, yeah, we want it to be a moment, but it's not like the big cheer thing.
mm.
And in fact, fun fact, nothing gory happens to David here.
That's a good point.
And the
That,
reason is because he was never supposed to be dead here. He was going to come back for Lost Girls. That's how
okay.
serious. That's how serious this was. They were going to find a way, and that's why he doesn't blow up or anything like that. He's just normal. But there was going to be something. It's crazy. And again, the way that this all is framed is that it's actually the kids that are getting to shine because nothing else is going right now. They think
Mm,
they've won, but they haven't. It's the kids that are having to kind of figure out what's going on. And when stuff goes south, the adults are the first ones that get taken out. Or in the case of the mum, she's helpless. It's the kids that do a lot of the stepping up. And I just think this is wonderful. Add to that as well the fact that the second Frog Brother, we barely spoken about, he did this film and then basically walked away from acting
mm.
when he had a like if this was now, like the guy from Stranger Things and the guy from Shazam did like the kid there did really really well and appeared in 3 4 films. Even if he never does anything again, he'll always get pulled back into stuff. Whereas back then, you can be in a film, you can be really well regarded, and you can disappear without a trace if you're just not interested.
Oh,
Sorry,
this is
so many
a
rants.
genuinely good reveal.
It's nice, isn't it? And the lighting as well. There's so many different things. From the bad guy, like the glasses coming off, and just little subtle hints,
Mm.
creepy horror, but also as well, Michael, who's finally lit like a horror film.
Yeah, it's
And they even do the framing as well with the lion, with the predator in the
yeah.
background.
That's it's unsubtle as hell, but it's great.
And the also as well the bad guy is talking to the kids on the same level because
Oh
they
yeah,
both know who each other are. So the mother is now being completely ignored almost. Yeah, it's
um,
he's a he, I'm surprised. I'm surprised. Did he do any more horror villains?
let's have a quick look.
I know he's done one or two odd. I saw him in a film once, and I watched it, and it took a very odd, let's just say an odd direction, and I was like,
Hmm.
I don't want to continue watching this.
Let's
But
see, narrated for Tommy Knockers. Mm.
it is nice makeup, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's and
Uh,
zooms in on faces and yeah, but just so
looking
so
at it.
so quickly
Uh,
taken out, and that's the beautiful thing about this.
hmm,
Adults are just dismissed.
yeah, it's funny though because you're right. He takes the adults out straight away, but he's not dismissive of the kids.
No,
He's seen what they can do. They've
yeah,
taken out his his
his
family.
his family, yeah. And that's the thing. He wants a family. It was a strange
Yeah.
thing as well. It's a wonderful motivation. And I've always thought as well the way they that framed his hands and stuff. He naturally has obviously quite large hands anyway, but
Mm.
they just made the most of it. You see, I can't use sound. There's no way I'm going to get away with even using the horn because if you're listening to the film or you watch the film at this point as well, they do add in orchestra and organ horns at a couple of moments in the film, and it really works. They also, if you listen to this element, this finale back, listen to the sounds of what's clearly the monster dying. The monster actually dies after the explosions. Like you
Mm.
hear groans and stuff, almost like it's dying
The
like
physical
now.
body's died, but now
Yeah.
there's nothing left to anchor it, so
And
it's
fair
gone.
play to the Frog Brothers who came with their own goggles. I'm just like at this point they're owning the film. And that's the weird thing is like I don't care about the mother, even though she's lovely. I care about the
Mm.
granddad. I don't care about our Jason Patrick. I don't care about our femme fatale. All
Yeah.
I care about is Frog Brothers.
Yeah,
Is that wrong?
it's really Sam and the Frog Brothers because everyone else is kind of like you say. But at this point, eh,
Oh, and kid who's going to be taken away from her and returned to his actual parents who are looking for him.
yes.
Probably moments after this, and social services are going to have a field day. But oh, just well done, Corey Haim. It's the best line. But yeah, the so much as well of this film and the discourse about it online has been about the final scene because it's such a deadpan way for the granddad to kind of like react to everything. Plus, as well, he doesn't want anyone to touch his drink, which, although is root beer, you could always say it's something else, which is what a lot
Hmm.
of people have taken it to be. And the slow kind of lights going off is almost like he's about to say, like it's almost like a setup horror film that the kids and the mum are now going to be attacked by the granddad. If you see what
I just love the reaction of from the mum and the kids because they're just looking like you knew.
you knew and you didn't tell me. That's it. Jameson Newlander, who was Alan Frog, who
Hmm.
I only went back and did it. So after he did this film, I don't think he did another film until 2003 when he was the cameo in one of the Lost Boy sequels.
Huh.
I think, anyway, I think. I know they obviously the dogs both get a shout out, which is good,
Yep.
but they never give a shout out to the priest.
Oh yeah.
And I've always thought that that might be the cameraman. And the only reason I say that as well is because the director of photography in this film is a guy called Chapman,
Hmm.
and you won't have a clue who he is. Like, but you might have heard the term Chapman in terms of film because Chapman was one of the guys who helped develop a lot of the camera systems that people use to this day. Chapman
Okay.
dollies, for instance, so
Yeah.
the moving forward and backwards. There is a brand called Chapman, and they've done a
Hmm.
lot to he. So Chapman is one of those guys, much like George Lucas, who has won a lot of. He's won a lot of awards across stuff, and he's had a lot of respect for the development of camera and grip technology.
Okay.
And not long after this, he was asked to do another film, this time for a first time director. And due to studio interference, he was booted off the film before he got the chance to start. Do you want to know what that film was?
Go on. I'm intrigued.
Johnny Mnemonic.
It keeps coming back to Johnny.
Oh yeah, and the guy who shot this, by the way, that same guy Chapman,
Hmm.
he also shot Taxi Driver. I mean, this is a Oscar winning guy.
Yeah.
This is huge. And I should say as well, not only did Weiss win an Oscar just before coming onto this film, But about 10 years after this, oh sorry, 8 years after this film, she won a second Oscar. So
Hmm.
there was still a lot of success that came from this film. But I think a lot of it is more influence. Before this film, as you
Absolutely.
said, um, oh, motion control supervisor Michael Bigelow. It can't be the same Bigelow. I can only hope. Anyway,
Hmm.
the before this film, vampires were very old-fashioned, kind of stayed in the mud. There
Yeah.
were other films that kind of presented vampires in a cool and interesting way, but this was a film that was successful, really pushed it, and yeah, I you look at this and then look at Buffy, and there's definitely a correlation. I will say as well one other thing, which I kind of realized at the time that for a generation of people who'd grown up after the band had had its day, this was a film for a lot of people that they saw the picture of the front man of the Doors. They saw that
Oh,
big
okay.
picture of him
Yeah.
in the cave, and there's the cover of the Doors, "People Are Strange" by Echo and the Bunnymen, and this film actually introduced a lot of people to the music of the Doors and Jim Morrison in general.
Oh, that's interesting. That's real interesting, actually. Huh. And
So
it's one of those things that makes sense because he's one of the great examples of a star who died at the zenith. So,
yeah, yeah, and although like fashion, I mean, there's we could have spent so much time just talking about fashion in this film, and
yeah.
the kind of weird cloth trench coat. And by the way, I guarantee you, when I was a kid watching this for the first time, even with it being like 6 or 7 years after the film had come out, I still thought everyone looked cool as hell
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you could get away with so much stuff. Like some of the stuff in this film you could wear now, but some of it is still probably a little bit too extreme.
Absolutely. I mean, some of it is it's clearly of its time, but it also just works real well, real well. And honestly, without this film, you don't get Spike in Buffy.
You don't. You clearly don't.
Well, oh,
You,
actually, you don't get Angel either, to be fair, because they're pretty much they're both the same base. They're both David, just in two facets of him.
well,
But,
this is this thing as well. Although it was not like Kiefer was not playing a punk,
hmm,
but the hairstyle, and I mean because of everything about him, and again the Sutherland he has the Sutherland hairline as well,
hmm,
which is quite a let's face it, it's quite a it's almost like a
sharp.
widow's peak, but
Hmm,
it's an early widow's peak, but then it stays there, and it's the same for his father as well. It was the
yeah.
same. He always had that same hairline,
Hmm,
but because of the cut, it does look very punkish, punk stroke new romantic. And
hmm,
you look at that, and then you look at Spike, and they are so incredibly similar in terms of the appearance.
hmm,
And you've got to think that there was at least a little bit of that there. And of course, they realized as well that vampires can be funny and ironic and cool, and they can be gruesome and horrific. And also in this
hmm.
film as well, I think you see two vampires cry, or one vampire, one proto vampire.
Yeah,
It's like you can see all these emotions that they put into this stuff. So, yeah, it was really good.
absolutely. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat because you've come up with some really good stuff there, dude. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
I have just talked at you for a long time. However,
Yeah.
folks, however, last night, D and I, and this is a little bit of breaking the fourth wall. Last night, D and I had a chat,
Hmm.
and there might be something in addition to what we already have coming up over Christmas. And I know that if we do that recording, it will be 95% D, and it will be 5% me going, every 2
Probably,
minutes.
probably yes.
So that will be the natural balance, the natural order of things. But yeah, this has been so good. And I'll tell you what, I am so glad to finally get this one done. I've wanted to do a Lost Boys. I mean, my goodness, I don't know if anyone is even going to know this, but if you know what, sort of, I'm going to call him out. If Paul Anderson is listening to this, Paul Anderson, yes, the guy who posed with the Unicron, yes, you, sir, you know that this was something we were going to do on the We're Watching a Movie podcast, which I believe was 11 years ago.
Oh lordy.
And it's one of those things. It's Lost Boys and it's one other film that everyone, we always in our group, we always said we were going to cover and we never did. And so being able to do this, I am eternally grateful, Dee. I genuinely am, because this is like a huge tick kind of marked off on a list that that's been sort of sat there for a long time.
Not a problem. I'm happy to help you get that one off your bucket list, dude.
And if anyone is listening to this, all I can do is just, as usual, apologize. But you're the one who listened this long, so it's your
Yeah.
fault.
Clearly, you enjoyed listening to us two yammer for best part of 2 hours, so you only have yourselves to blame here. Sorry.
And on that,
Not
on that
sorry.
consolidatory note, I think we will wish you all the best. Dee, where can people find you online?
Oh, I am on socials as David Kelly. I'm an occasional contributor to UKAnime.net. I must write something soon to help them out on there. Uh, over on the Fluff and Hammer, I am Mr. Nichols' regular collaborator on the Deeper Dives show, where we find an article from White Dwarf of years past and then just go off on it as we're wont to do. That's a Patreon exclusive. Uh, and I also have just begun. I'm the second of my article series I'm writing on for Fluff and Hammer about characters from the fiction of Warhammer.
Mm,
Not so much basically how characters from the short stories from the novels have translated into miniature form.
well, lovely.
And I've been enjoying it. I'm writing part 4 at the moment. It's a bit of a diversion from the main thread, but I kind of had to go there. But it's fun. I, it's evolving in my mind as I write it. So it could end up being quite a lengthy series if it goes where I think it might end up going. So
Well, I'll put links to all of this in the show notes. They'll either be physical links or at least I can give you the tags to get there, folks, if you want to see it. I will
fair
also
dues.
say as well that, folks, if you've listened this far, we are obviously part of the Fluff and Hammer network. So that means
Hmm.
as well that we're doing this actually to support the Fluff and Hammer and get more
Yeah,
people listening to their content because their content is really, really good. But they do need a helping hand. So I will also as well include the links to the Fluff and Hammer Patreon involved in this show, just because it is a truly worthwhile cause. And although we might waffle and we might ramble, you know that we are at least real human beings and we are not AI sludge. And that's the sort of challenge the Fluff and Hammer's facing at the moment is, especially on
hmm.
YouTube, there's a lot of sludge AI that's going on out there. So we want to at least keep it real.
Yeah. At least with us, you get a flawed product, but it's a human product.
Yes. I'm not going to say it's an interesting product, but it is a human product. I for my for what it's worth, you know what? The best place to hear from me is on another video, and I'm sure I will tag another video at the end of this video, so you can get 4 hours of waffle goodness. How good is that?
Yeah.
And on that note, folks, we wish you all the best. Hope you have a lovely Halloween, a
Abs-
safe Halloween,
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for sticking with us through
and
this.
if you have any suggestions, just drop them in the comments.
Please, we are happy to take suggestions for a film or even corrections to our facts.
Oh no, 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 no. I've
No?
made too many errors. No, I can't even, I barely remember my name most of the time. I don't want to give people the excuse to copy and paste the entire wiki.
All right, that's a fair point.
Cool. Right. You guys take care and we shall speak to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.